guys, what's going on? This is David Chen, and you're on New York Weekly's #1 podcast for 2020, Pandanomics Podcast. And today we have a very special entrepreneur, businessman, and enlightened individual, the one and only Brian Esposito. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, David. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm enjoying the real San Diego background. You always
right.
Get in there. They have
it's
this type
real.
of background, right? They have this type of background, the tropical breeze, right? And you're like, that looks great until it hits your hair, and it's like, right? That's how it works. So I wore the shirt in honor of the fake Zoom backgrounds and everything else. So, first I want to give a shout out to our boy Jason Colker, who actually set us up and met each other. And I think there was an instant connection and click on a lot of things. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely shout out to Jason. He's a rock star. Real quick, over the last 20 years now, I built a holding company. There's over 75 companies in it as of now. And then I've accumulated over 150 joint ventures from around the world, operating in over 25 different industries. At the end of the day, I love to just do good work with good people. And I really enjoy the idea of adding value and bringing real tangible assets to a balance sheet. I get to work with startups, even up to Fortune 500 companies. And, think of it as glorified matchmaking. I take my entire world, whether it's relationships, companies, JVs, access to banking, capital, accounting, compliance, bring all these resources into an opportunity and create real brand new markets, brand new use cases, and a pipeline of real positive earnings. I'm all about companies that make earnings. I believe companies should be valued properly off of their earnings. That's what the stock market does. And that's what I always try to preach to people and companies out there trying to raise money. Raising money is great if you get it. If you don't get it, it's a kiss of death. Learn how to make money. Learn how to create products and services that the market demands and price it accordingly.
I love that. You're doing a very important thing in the accounting world and traditional principles called EBITDA, right?
Oh, yeah. About that.
I don't even know what that means. It almost sounds like a rock star. But the EBITDA is important. Now, for a lot of people, they're going to ask you, how did you get into something like that? It obviously wasn't overnight. You had to generate your success from your previous experiences. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I self-need, right? How do we all learn? What do we need to do to protect our own world and grow and learn how to pivot and survive through your own creation? So I've always been an entrepreneur. I always started my own businesses. And early on, I was used in a very poor fashion from a lot of people and companies from the way that I think, my access, the relationships that I created. And I was brought into other people's world. And then I was waiting for them to do what they say they were going to do, make sure I'm properly part of the upside of whatever that opportunity was. And I'd be waiting there until I was starving to death. So I said, I need to change this model. I did it wrong for 15 years. I then started saying, well, what if I own the band that I was creating a makeup or a cosmetic brand? And then what if I own the apparel company for that entire model? And I kept building companies. And then, it was a mess in the beginning. I just knew I needed to control my world. I had no idea what I was doing. But I said, I'm not going to rely on other people to do the right thing because it doesn't always happen. I know I'll do the right thing for myself, and I know I'll do the right thing for the people involved in what I'm creating. So I needed to control my own destiny and control my own world. So I just kept building companies, acquiring companies, merging with companies. And trust me, I got my ass kicked every way you can imagine during that process. I made every mistake you can think of. And now the reward of that entire experience for me is not monetary. It's the ability to take what I've learned and apply it to new opportunities, new companies that I'm invited into. And I just bring this wealth of knowledge and experience and help support and give the right resources to any team or company that is looking to succeed and survive in the market.
Let's talk a little bit about this, right? And before I get into that, my question is, what would be your biggest win that you would probably talk about and your biggest loss? And then I'm going to ask the next question.
Okay. Biggest win right now is a company called Nodal. I've been obsessed with connectivity ever since those Twin Towers came down in 2001. I saw Nextel out in the market. I said, that is a very important piece of technology. Then I started creating these parallel communication networks, wireless networks that didn't rely on Wi-Fi, that didn't rely on cellular connectivity. My journey and career in that market led me to meet the Nodal team. We merged. My work was in that field and what they were doing, and we created the world's largest wireless network, connecting hundreds of millions of IoT devices around the world. And we didn't deploy a single cell tower and did not deploy a single Wi-Fi station. Biggest success, but also, a hell of a journey. You don't go into the technology world under finance. You don't go into trying to create a wireless network under finance or self-finance, which I did. and painful experience. But if you have survival skills, patience, and you can withstand any hurdle, you can make it.
And tell me about one of the biggest failures or one of the biggest losses that you had in business.
Sure. It was my entire business and world collapsed in 2016. February 12th of that year, I got into a car accident. A drunk driver hit me head on. I often say I'm so glad that woman hit me, because she could have killed somebody. She could have ruined the family. So I'll take the hit, and I'm honored to take the hit. But what ultimately wound up happening is I was pulled out of my world. In my world, I was the glue. I was everything. And I didn't know that until you rip it out. And all the people that I put in place to run certain companies, senior management, all the support system I had around me was nothing. It was air. And I was my own support system. I was the one making all the deal flows. I was the one making all the progress, the momentum. I was the one putting my ass on the line, getting lines of capital and keeping these things moving. And the minute that I wasn't there, everything fell apart. But what was more disheartening was that the people that I had surrounding me, that I loved dearly, I would do anything for, I did do anything for. Is a lot of people I co-signed for cars. I co-signed to get them into homes, paid them more than they should have been paid. And I didn't get an hour from these people, and my world turned upside down. And that was extremely disheartening and discouraging. But I made a conscious decision. I said, well, am I going to get angry and bitter and hate the world because I got to fight and come back and rebuild my businesses? And if I had to deal with internal demons, there's no way I could have accomplished my professional comeback, in addition to being an angry, closed off, bitter person. So I made a conscious decision to, anything that happened, it was my fault. I put these people there. I can't be mad at their actions. I can be upset and angry with myself for a minute. And what do I do going forward to make sure that never happens? And damn it, I made sure that I put a lot of things in place that will never happen again. And I created a pretty unique ecosystem and world that can continue to go on with or without me.
That's such an interesting thing, and I'll tell you why. There is nothing worse, in my opinion, even though the positive comes out of it. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a team player, that you are pouring your heart and soul. You're not eating. You're eating ramen at night. You might have the nice car and you might have the businesses. You're trying to struggle between, do I pay the company's electricity bill or my house electricity bill? We've never had this conversation, right? But for all you entrepreneurs out there, all you business owners, all you young cats that want to do this is a reality that none of these business guys ever talk about, right? Nope. And then when you're sacrificing time after time for the betterment of the team, and you're almost like what I like to call a glass house, right? It looks so fortified, but one rock shatters it all. And you get in this accident, and I love the way that you look at it, which is, well, at least it was me getting an accident as opposed to someone dying. So you're supposed to take that negative, right? Absorb it for someone else. A lot of people don't think in that spiritual type of level. But then when you got out of it and thinking that you've placed all these family members that you spend holidays with and birthdays with and anniversaries with and do all this stuff, and they disappear, they have no idea how much of an internal conflict that causes.
Oh, yeah.
It is worse than any breakup I've ever been through. It is worse than having parental issues, because what ends up happening is it's so many people over and over and over again. You think you're the absolute problem. And then you said there's two types of people, right? Like you get very, very bitter and jaded, and then you become the jerk that you never wanted to become, but you now have made it financially. But who you are is now you're completely unhappy.
You're lost.
Yeah, you're lost. You're literally lost. You're like a lone maverick, or you somehow keep doing this. And I had this analogy yesterday with one of my teammates. I said, all this is it's a pack of cards. We're ripping open the cards. There's 16 cards. There might be bogus cards. Ripping another 16 cards. Might be another bogus cards. Ripping another 16 cards. We find that one gem. We have the LeBron. There we go. And literally, that's how it is. But you have to go through a box of cards to get one decent thing. And I feel like that's the same with people. Like, it has blown my mind being 41 and my ideals at 20 with the people that you've talked to, that you were going to grow up with, that you've done it. And in my 40s, look around this world and say, man, that 1% is only a 1%. That's it. That's all it is.
And that 1% can change on you. Because if they marry somebody that has a whole different set of values or morals or motivation, all of a sudden they adapt those values, and you're dealing with an entirely different person that you never even knew. So that 1% can go down to zero real quickly, depending on who their influences are or who's in their life.
Yeah, and that's the other part, right? Like, it's so disheartening and it's so crazy. And so for all you entrepreneurs out there listening to this, it's good to know it's you, and it's good to reflect and change. But you're hearing from Brian and myself, it's not always you. It's just the pack of cards, what you're dealt with, and moving forward. You know, the other thing that you said, Brian, I felt was super important to talk about is when these people leave and your businesses collapse, right? You're in a state, physically you can't go, mentally you can't do it. You're pushing it through for the betterment of the team. Now it collapses, and the first person you blame is who?
Oh, it's myself.
That's right.
Yeah, it's myself. And if you don't, you're delusional, and you're not fixable.
Exactly.
If you're blaming other people, then nobody's perfect. So you're immediately you're done. In my mind, you're done.
And I loved hearing that you blamed yourself because you brought in these people, but like you just said, people change, and what's logical of a goal or the goal at hand, people start dropping off, and then they do these other things that are just like, why would you have taken that instead of this, right? And I think that's another hard thing about leadership and things that you have. And then, you know, the other thing I found very interesting that you said is you put together all these deals, and this tells me that you're a very kind and compassionate person, because you're doing what's right. In other words, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to believe that you're going to do it because you sold me this dream. So all you young entrepreneurs who are listening to this out there, when some guy is telling you to spend $10,000 to listen to a talk, and they're going to sell you some sort of dream that this book or this magic pill is going to change life, it doesn't happen. I mean, if it could happen, everyone would have already taken that pill. Warren Buffett would have taken the pill. Cuban would have taken the pill, right? You and I'd be taking the pill. And then they sell you this dream of these changes, and then they screw you out of it. And in your mind, you're like, I would never have done this. How are you going from there? How did you get over that? And how did you continue to not become jaded and bitter because of that situation?
Yeah, you have to be very careful, because you need to always, like, for me, I'm open to the world. And when you're open to the world, you invite good and bad in. And that's the deal. You know, you just got to be smarter and pick out certain traits really quickly as to, okay, I've seen this person before. I know what to expect. I'm going to back away and just dissolve the momentum. But what I had to do was I had to create a new way of being myself, being more assertive, still being me, kind and open. And how I did that was being completely vulnerable and transparent. I went immediately into every situation with, this is where I'm at. You know, I'm not the fake it till you make it guy. I am the guy, however, that says I'm going to look bigger than I am, but I'm going to become bigger than I said I was. That's the way that my mindset works. And everybody that I'm involved with, that's what we're doing. That's the momentum. That's the vision. That's the theory behind it. There were moments where I hated the world, but I had to snap out of that immediately. And I said, there's no way in hell I can come back and be angry. It's not going to work. You're not going to be open to new opportunities. I'm not going to do what I've done. I know what I could do because I did it. And I know I'm going to surpass this moment, and I'm going to be so much more smarter and stronger and more equipped to handle anything. Because of what I went through in 2016 and rebuilding, when 2020 happened and everybody was sitting in the corner in a fetal position, I was like, this is just another problem. If you don't figure out how to pivot, how to find opportunities, how to create new use cases, how to look at your resources and go into the market with something that the market needs right now, then you're not taking advantage of the opportunity. And there's going to be another problem. There's going to be a COVID-20. There's going to be some other storm or a blackout. Something's going to happen where your business is going to be interrupted. And every second that you sit there and cry about it or whine about it is a second that you're not utilizing to figure out what can you do to be stronger, smarter, and succeed. It's just the way that I'm wired now. And I had to put a persona out there, and I didn't like it, but I had to put something out there and say, listen, do not mess with me. I have a whole process and procedure now. If you come into me and you say things that you have, or you're dealing with this piece of real estate, or you have this piece of technology and you're dealing direct with the principal, all right, fine. Go talk to legal compliance. We have a private security division, and then there's an accounting arm. If you're going to go through those processes, then you're most likely legit. 9 out of 10 times, those people that solicit me, they never respond again. They disappear. And I'm so grateful now that I have these procedures. It saves me a ton of time, saves me a ton of headaches. And the people that are legitimate will happily go through a couple of questions and go through a couple task items of a procedure. And then we get down to what kind of business can we do together.
I love hearing that in two senses. I think one sense is, you run through due diligence if you're legitimate going from there. But what most people didn't understand what you just said was you're willing to work with them if the transparency is the initial part, not this is where I'm at. And I think where a lot of people mess up, entrepreneurs, right? We have to blow it up. We have to get to a certain level. We're going from there, like you said. But you can't do it to the point where it's way beyond your ability of what you can actually do, right? Like maybe I get a little Mark Cuban, so I call my friend a little Mark Cuban. That's reality. But it's not like, oh, I can own the Mavericks team tomorrow. No way Mark is selling it. That's where people I think don't understand that part.
Yeah.
The second part is I love your transparency of telling people where you are right now.
Yeah.
Most people are afraid of doing that because they think after maybe talking to 10 investors and 10 partners, they don't want to work with them. Tell us why you want to do that and why that is so much more significant and valuable in the real world.
Yeah, well, for me, it's how I am. I can't tell you something that's not legitimate. That's just how I'm wired. But you have to think of the person you're talking to. If you're willing to risk your own lies or falsehoods that you're putting out there or misrepresentation, fine. Maybe one day someone's going to judge you for that when you pass away. But you need to think about who are you hurting in that chatter, because you got to think about that person, their money, their family, their relationships. I am very relationship driven. My relationships mean the world to me because I cherish them. I nourish them. I'm wishing people Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Hope your granddaughter's doing good. That's what I do all day, every day. It's not always a business ask, but when there is a business ask, because I'm very genuine with people and I'm there for people, they'll always take my call. They'll always respond to my email or my text. So being transparent, being honest, letting people know what the deal is, in reality, I like to say, all right, we're going to put all our guns on the table. I have this. This is what I want to do. I believe you have that. And I really believe together we're more powerful, there's more value, and we're boosting each other's balance sheets. It's very simple. But if I'm telling you something I don't have, at some point it's going to catch up to me and you're going to see that I'm lying and I've wasted my time, I wasted your time, and I discredited myself. And vice versa, same thing for them. If they're telling me things that they don't have, at some point it's going to come up. And I'd rather know right now, and I'd rather people tell me where the bodies are buried. Tell me immediately the biggest problem, because I love that. I love dormant assets. I love things that people are afraid of, because I can come in there and say, I can clean that up. I can revive this. I got another utility for this piece of technology or this product or this solution. Sometimes the bigger the problem, I love those opportunities, because for me, I could just pick it up, drop it into my world and create instant value.
Wow. That is a phenomenal piece of thought and a phenomenal piece of doing business. And that's something that I truly believe in. And let's clarify this to a lot of people. As business people, we understand that stuff happens. We understand that you were talking to this company and company X ends up disappearing, not doing their side of it, right? That does happen. And I think that's an internal battle of ego, because you want to show that your capabilities of doing so, but you also want to show the transparencies of where it's at. All you're asking for is one important task, which is, if you don't tell me what the problem is, I can't help you find the solution. Just like an attorney or doctor tells you, right? If you don't tell me what's really going on, I can't tell you how to fix it and work around it, right? So, Brian, I love that amazing part. Let's talk a little bit about technology and things that you look at investing in outside of EBITDA, right? Because I'm sure you invest in startups all the time. What else are you looking for that is instrumental for people to be able to work with you?
Well, personality-wise, or the actual product or tech?
I think both. I think we can start with personality. Let's talk a little bit about the tech.
Yeah, I immediately hone in on the principals or the management team, and even to an extent, some of the current stakeholders or investors. I I'm not judging anybody, to each their own. I don't work well with major egos. I don't work well with major materialistic or greedy type of people. To me, it's food poisoning. I don't care how much money we can make together. If I don't feel genuine connection with you on some morals, values, what's important, then I'm gone. And again, to each their own. I wish everybody the best, pray for you. But I immediately look at, are these good, decent people, some family values, someone that I would invite over for Thanksgiving? That's who I want to work with, and hardworking. I want to see, if you're going to be in business, you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be a startup founder or co-founder, you better be working your ass off. And I don't want to hear you got a week off, or you're going here, or you're picking your kids up for dance recitals. I don't want to hear any of that. If you're going to do this and you're going to do it right, you got to sacrifice something. That's the deal. You can't half-ass it. You can't be half pregnant. If you're going to go into something, I need you in 100%, and you will have 100% of my support. The minute I see you faltering, I'll know that this is not going to be a success. I know that you don't have what you need to run this thing. I know you don't have what is needed to make sure that it survives. It has all of the tools and resources and strength that it needs, because that all stems from whoever's leading the company. That is the pillar. That is the pillar of strength. And I also look for people that can take ownership of making a mistake. I take ownership all the time for making mistakes. I know things I need to work on. I'm accountable for my actions, and I say, oh, well, that was on me. I got to do better next time, and I'll make sure to make it right to whoever was involved in that situation. So if you don't have that type of ability in you, then I can't work with you either. Now, leading over into the tech side and certain products or IP or solutions, I look for things that I see the world differently. So because I have so many companies in my holdings, so much resources and access, I can look at a piece of technology that maybe has a use case or a market that they're currently going after, and I can say, well, I'll help you with that, and we'll do that because I don't want to take you off your course. But we have a really big opportunity over here in this company where I could take that piece of technology, drop it in here, get you guys revenue, positive earnings, and I can help fuel your company with cash flow. I always want to show companies immediately, how do we make money with what you have today? I don't want you raising money at some BS valuation that you came up with. You gave away a bunch of equity to your cousin, your uncle, and all these people that shouldn't have it. And now you're going to run out of money because you didn't figure out how to make money. And then you're going to go out and raise money again. Well, while you're going out raising money and on that roadshow, who's running your company? Who's managing the product? Who's taking care of the house? Nobody. So that model drives me crazy. It's what everybody's used to. It's what everybody goes on these roadshows. They're pitching stuff all the time. I love going out and getting seed capital. I think you got to do that. I think you should do it with strategic capital. I think you should do it with money that helps you open up doors and get you new business. But you better find a way to make money with that initial money, because otherwise, what are you doing? You're going to dilute yourself out of your own company. And odds are you're not going to be the next unicorn. And the minute you can realize that, you can actually build a company, build a nice life, and grow from your own cash flow. And that's I'm sorry, I think the world needs to go back to that.
Let's talk a little about that, right? So people might not fully understand what you meant by that, because in the world that they're living in, they're saying, well, everything is valuations and 10Xs and 7Xs. And these are basic business principles that a Warren Buffett would absolutely look at, which is why he had such an issue with certain things, because it had to be these basic fundamental principles that were the core of any business. So let's talk a little about this. An Amazon that has lost 17 years before it became what it did.
Yep.
If you were investing in that, what was their play in your mind, and how would they have kept that going with someone like yourself, as opposed to probably what everyone else thinks is, well, if it doesn't work, it's just not going to work. But that wasn't the case. There are hidden strategies that are there, right, that actually kind of made it so much more unique as a loss leader for those reasons. What would that be for you, and how would you continue to work with something like that, where it seems like that way, but it's something else? What is the other factor to make you stay on to that?
In that specific situation, I'm very real estate driven. I know they had a tremendous real estate asset base that allowed them to leverage their earnings and allowed them to continue to grow and fill those buildings with their own business model. So a sale leaseback is what I'm completely familiar with. If you followed what they did with AWS, and we were heavily involved in that with a lot of our companies that were utilizing, you saw that was going to be the the key that allowed them to achieve profitability and to basically infiltrate every business around the world using their servers, and they had a massive hardware play. So if you understood the real estate, the tech, I was in product distribution forever. That's how I built what I built in the beauty industry. I was Amazon's first Luxe beauty retailer. I was Jet.com's first retailer. I don't think they still are profitable with their distribution if you just looked at that side of the business and servicing, ordering from the site and getting the products delivered. I don't believe that's still profitable because that's a massive undertaking. But they were smart enough to diversify and utilize some other channels to help make them profitable. And that is really what I'm trying to say too when I go into these companies. Yeah, you have your business model that you think is reality and what you went into business for. So many times people start businesses and they find a customer that they never even thought about, or their biggest customer is not even what they went into the market for. And that's what's great about what I've built. I can sit with these companies and say, okay, there's a need for this over here. So use me to open up that door while you're still working on your original business concept and you're still growing that. This may overtake that. So let's do it. It's not going to be a long sales cycle. I have the relationship there. We have ownership there. We have a partnership there. I love when people use me, but use me as a team. Use me where we're all going to grow. We're all going to benefit from this, and everybody wins. It's a very simple model. Again, if you don't have the greedy side, the ego, and the pride, and you're willing to take a step back and not think that I'm attacking you when I say that the channel you're going down is great, but this one may help support that channel. This one may be better than that channel.
That's right. Teamwork makes that dream work. I love that, and that is pivotal. And I think as a leader, I mean, I know you do this because just talking to you, I do this. I constantly self-reflect on myself, my business, my leaderships. And after the initial emotion, because everyone gets through the emotion side of it, then I start getting very logical and I disseminate and I say, this is something I could control, I can't control, I will control, and go from there. So for you guys, all you guys out there, have a little bit of emotion. It's normal. It's a very normal thing. How do you make these expectations when you talk about the companies that you own with team members? Obviously, there's a constant replacement issue. There's certain people who understand certain tech side of things or certain things that make them specialty type of members. But how do you maintain that or replace people that might be cancerous to the team and doesn't align with the vision and the thought process and the compassion that you have driven in your companies?
They have to go. Simple as that. I don't care how talented they may be, unless they're a major equity owner. In that case, I won't be there. Anybody that's toxic, and you'll probably relate to this too. If you're post 25 years old, I think you've really started to become who you are, and you can have moments where you have like I had a near-death experience, so I really had to snap into a new mindset. Outside of that, we're adults now. And David, you meet somebody now that's in our age bracket, that's who they are. There's no changing them. I don't want to change them. I don't want to help them. I don't want them to, more importantly, I don't want them to affect me negatively. That's the new selfish side of me. Is like, I want to be happy. I built a world where I can be very creative as to who I invite in and who I push out. I have a great model, and it's my little world. Whatever's happening everywhere else, it's noise to me, but I can't control my world, and I'm very particular about who I let in my world, because it go back to 2016. It only takes one to take everything apart, and I built a pretty phenomenal system right now, and I'm not going to let anybody mess with that. And the minute I smell it, you got to cut it out. They got to go. So, to answer your question, it depends on what their role is there, but if I'm feeling a certain way about somebody and I can work with anybody, then I'm sure the rest of the team's feeling the same way. And maybe they'd be grateful for my straightforward opinion on somebody and give them a chance, I guess. But what's the point of giving an adult male or woman a chance? This is who they are. You know who they are. You're only wasting more time, and give somebody else the opportunity to make money and be part of a company that deserves it and that appreciates it.
Wow, I love that. Most people don't understand that, but you said 25 because the human brain doesn't form until 25, right? Like, people don't know that. It's really a thoughts and actions things, and that's when you're actually ingrained in who you are as a person. Do you have a hard time internally from 16, the person you were 16 to 21, where when you do have to cut somebody off that might have been performing at a high level and just started dipping maybe because they married somebody or whatever their reasons are, right? I mean, whatever that story is, do you have a harder time cutting them off and giving them second chances? Or are you just, this is what I'm going to do. This is who I am. It doesn't matter who it is. I have to stick to my principles.
I stick to my principles now. But, the catch-22 to that is I'm smarter about who I invite into my life. So I'm not pushing anybody out anymore. I cleaned house. I have a really good model as to who's filtering in and out. And I'm not really firing anybody from my life anymore. I do nip things in the butt very quickly if I'm smelling something about somebody new that I don't like or I feel off about. I trust that gut instinct. When I was 16 to, I don't know, well, probably 30, I was very, I was too kind with people, and I was too laid back. And then I would explode. I'm Italian and Sicilian. Like I would have that moment where I'd flip a table. But if I was smart enough and go back in time and say, well, that person was who they were then is the same who they are now. It's my fault for keeping them in my life for so long. And it's my fault for trying to figure it out. That's exhausting. That is exhausting behavior. If you're trying to fit somebody into your life that doesn't fit, or they're negative, or they're just a drain, it sounds cold. I don't care if it's a family member or a loved one or a best friend from high school. If they're having a negative effect on you and they don't see it, and you tried to have a conversation with them about it and it's not going anywhere, well, that's on you. And if you want to continue to allow someone to affect your life and bring you down, well, then you have a lot of work to do on yourself, and you should figure out how to be happy. Life can be over in a second. And if you're not happy as much as you can be throughout that day, then you damn well should make some changes to make sure you're enjoying your life. You only get one of these. So have the best time you possibly can.
Boom, shakalaka.
Boom.
I love that.
Couple of mic drops there.
I like that. You got dropping the mic and going from there. Brian, tell people where they can find your companies and yourself on social media.
Absolutely.
Oh, and the web world.
Absolutely. So I use LinkedIn and Twitter, Brian J. Esposito, for basically everything. EIE.ROCKS. So EIE.rocks is the corporate site. We're always adding new holdings and joint ventures and partnerships there. I'm always open to everybody. I love to give anybody my time back. That gives me their time. So please feel free to message me or email me on any of those platforms. Absolutely amazing, Brian. Brian, I really appreciate you dropping so much knowledge and so much reality, but with compassion into it. I have a really good friend that will join on our podcast. His name is John Leaves, behavioral scientist. I'll leave it with this. He says the least successful people are the most generous people, and the most successful people are the most generous people. And you have found your clear barriers of those are my principles and those are things I have to do. So everyone that's listening in, follow your principles and your guidelines, do the right things, don't BS too much. For David Chen and Mr. Brian Esposito, thank you for the time I've had on this podcast. We'll see you guys next week. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks, David.